Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. I want to introduce you to somebody who I have been honored to call a friend and a collaborator on some projects. Ed Howie, he is an experienced business branding strategist and the CEO and founder of BTYcreative. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's fun
Yeah,
that we get to chat and record at the same time.
I know. It's so good. And what was really cool, I have to tell you why I think you're so cool. There's a lot of reasons why I think you're so cool, but I want to start with one.
Let me make some
Yeah,
notes.
yeah. And what we can do is we can just turn them into affirmations, put them on your mirror every morning,
I love it.
and you can just, take it as a gift for being on the podcast. But
I'll take it.
when I was working with a friend of mine, Shane Evans, on her brand, Massage Heights, and you were already part of the organization. You were very much embedded, and she brought me in as a brand strategist to work alongside of you to come up with some fresh ideas. And I would say that most people would be like, what's she doing here? And you were like, awesome. Like, you were like, cool, more ideas, more brains, let's do this. And I was like, from day one, I was like, this guy is awesome. Like, what's his story? So that's the first reason why you're awesome.
Wow.
Second reason why you're awesome is because I realized at the end of this time together where we were workshopping that my flight was about to leave in like 15 minutes. And you didn't know. Everyone in the room was like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? By the time they were like, how are you going to handle this, Laura? Your flight's about to leave. You had my suitcase in the back of your very nice car and very clean. I was like, he does definitely have little kids at home. And like, you are going 80 miles an hour, bringing me to the airport, which was also, I was like, this guy is I was like, what's his story? I have to know him. I have to get to know this guy.
That's so cool. Wow.
And as we were developing our relationship, I was just blown away by your background. So those are two things that the audience now knows about you. But what they don't know is about all of these amazing brands that you've helped with their brand strategy. So take us back. Like, how did you get started before BTYcreative?
Wow. Okay. So before BTYcreative, I started off, as you know, in Chick-fil-A. I started off working as a 15-year-old in North Carolina in, let's say, the early 80s. And I basically was ready to get a job. I was 15 years old, and Chick-fil-A was the first place in the mall that would hire a 15-year-old for 3 hours a day, like 3 days a week, whatever the limitations were. But I was like, I'm in. And I just loved everything about it. I love the fact that got to work hard, you got to enjoy the people who you're with. It was fun taking care of customers. I remember being taught how to suggest a sell, and I'm like, oh, wow, that's right down my alley. You know, everybody needs fries. And
especially those fries.
Exactly. Now I started, I'm aging myself, but I started before waffle fries. It was back when we just had French fries. I mean, it was early. The Chick-fil-A I started working in was the 46th Chick-fil-A to open. And now there's like, I think 2,400. Anyway, so I was working at Chick-fil-A and ended up that was in Durham, North Carolina. Went to school at Chapel Hill, proud Tar Heel, worked all the way through college. And the summer before my senior year in college, I got offered an opportunity to go out and run a Chick-fil-A for 2.5 months as a 20-year-old in Norman, Oklahoma. And got to see firsthand, I had the collegiate learning about business, but then I had the firsthand like 2.5 P&Ls under my belt.
Yep.
And realized that while I enjoy operations, I enjoy helping people more than running something.
Yes.
And so for 10 years, I was on corporate staff with Chick-fil-A as an operations consultant, actually, even though I'm a marketer. I had, my job was to work with individual Chick-fil-A operators and help them sell more chicken and make more money. And the reality was that when you sell more and you make more money, it typically makes it much easier for all your other visions to occur.
Right. Because who doesn't want to sell more chicken and make more money? But
well, that's why you're in business. No matter how cool and clever and impassioned it is, you have to, just inflation alone, you have to sell more next year than you did this year if you're going to have the same return or stewardship. Yeah. So I learned firsthand as a 20-year-old telling people making 3, 4, 5 times as much money as I was how to make more money, and I loved it. But I got as this sounds like, I don't know, arrogant. I don't know what the word is, but I kind of got bored with it because I've been there 10 years and I loved the company, but I realized through getting my executive MBA during that time that as much as I love day to day, I really love being 6 months out. I love the strategy side, but I've got the operations background of how to make strategy happen. As a
Yes.
matter of fact, I think we've talked about strengths funders before.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think you're a huge fan as well.
I am.
So my 5 core strengths are ideation, strategic, winning others over, connectedness, and positivity.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I realized is that kind of conflict I had at Chick-fil-A was that I was doing the strategic, but I wasn't necessarily doing as much of the ideation. I like doing both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because you said to me one time, I remember asking you, well, gosh, you have such a great company and great client base and people who have been with you for a very long time. How did you know this is what you wanted to start? Was a branding and consulting company and a marketing agency. And you said, well, I pretty much just put together my strengths and hoped that people wanted to pay for it. And they actually did. And
Yeah.
that was such a really good piece of advice. I think many people who are listening are probably wondering if they're operating in their strengths. They're probably wondering, how do I know if I'm my gifts, or how do I know if my gifts are actually something that people want to buy, want to pay for? And what was that like? So you were, I know, going through some really great brands and decided to go off on your own, and like, what was that process like?
Yeah. So it's interesting. It really, in a bizarre, well, I believe a spiritual way, providential way, it came back to exactly what you just said. And the shorter version is that after Chick-fil-A, and then I was first director of marketing at a company called Atlanta Bread Company,
Mm-hmm.
which is similar to Panera Bread, that category back late 90s. I was recruited to be director of food service marketing at H-E-B Grocery here in San Antonio. H-E-B Grocery now is like a $29 billion family-owned grocery store chain. Texans know it. Some industry people know it. A lot of people don't know about it, but just incredibly family-owned company, been around 100 years. I was responsible for really bringing a restaurant mindset to retail back before it was quite as welcomed as it is today, both on the consumer as well as the industry side. And so I was recruited to be director of food service marketing, and there were so many things I loved about it, but there were so many things I didn't love about it. And what I didn't love about it is that while I had the responsibility for the vision and new products, and we had some huge success with my team on some stuff, I was also responsible for the day-to-day operations. And I had a conflict because I was working against my strengths, because I'm capable of running operations, but it's not my strength. It doesn't drive my passion. It actually depletes my energy. So, and I don't know if I even shared this with you. So, 2003, my wife looks at me. We're driving back from North Carolina, where I'm from, to Texas, where we're living and still live. 2 kids in the car. She looks at me and says, "Are you happy?" And I'm like, "With you?"
Yeah, can we get more specific
Yeah,
here? Because I want to
exactly.
know if I'm going to end up in the doghouse. Yeah.
Exactly. And she's a West Texan, and she goes, "I better know the answer to that question."
Right.
She said, "Are you happy at HEB?" And I'm dead silent for 5 months, for 5 minutes, felt like 5 months.
Yeah.
And you and I are similar personality. Silence is probably not your first response either.
Right. No.
Right. No. So I'm just, because I realized there's this watershed moment, and I finally voice up and say, no, I'm not. She says, "I know you're not. You haven't been for about 6 months. What are you going to do about it?" And being the perfect husband, I looked at her and said, "What do you mean? What am I going to do about it? You're not working, kids, mortgage, insurance.
Right.
What do you want me to do about it?" And she asked me the most powerful question. And she said, "What makes you happy?"
Mm.
And I was like, "I don't know." And she said, "What makes you happy?" And my first response was, "Well, I like helping people sell stuff." And she said, "You mean you want to be a salesman?" I was like, No. And what I said, and this was literally 17 years ago, I said, "I like helping people do all they can with what they have." And she said, the next most important question was, "Can you make money doing that?" No, "Can we make money you're doing that?"
Right. Let's preface this. Do I need to get a job, or can
Exactly.
we
That
make
was
money doing
that was the underlying question. And I was like, I don't know. So truly, and we both believe in providence.
Yes.
The book in my lap was Now Discover Your Strengths by Marcus Buckingham, 2003. My wife was driving. We were on I-10. I just got it out of the back of the car. That, that book. Remember when you had to carry stuff with you on vacation to read, right? Versus the ebook. So I literally had the book. And so we finished this conversation. She's driving. The kids are napping. My mind is blown. I start reading this book. And it says, if you order your world around your strengths, not only are you happier, you're more effective.
Yes.
Get home the next night, print out my 5 strengths. She reads them. It's 10:30. She said, well, they nailed you. What are you going to do about it? I said, I think we're starting our own company. She said, can we make money doing it? I said, I think so. And literally, it's hilarious. Again, Providence, that I have this on top of my desk. I found this yesterday. This is my business plan from 17 years ago.
Wow.
It was a 1-page business plan, and it was that we combined 21 years of marketing and operational experience with the United States leading restaurant and retail chains to help you activate your brand to grow sales, profits, and market share.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean, it pretty much stayed that way.
Is that crazy?
That is crazy, because most people's business plans are nothing like what is actually happening in their businesses.
Yeah, the first name was Brand Action, and we couldn't get that domain and stuff, but the idea was Brand Action, activating your brand through product, people, place, and promotion.
Nice.
And so we celebrate September 8th is 17 years.
Wow. That's so cool. And it's so funny that you were saying, you just mentioned the 4 P's of marketing. Like, there are some classic strategies that always work, right? That just are timeless, in the sense that no matter when you deploy them or how you deploy them, they're going to be effective for the brands that you help. And so, like, you have a system that helps so many brands be different. And why do you think that so many brands struggle with this?
I think my passion is entrepreneurs. Okay. It's nothing against corporate America, but frankly, I always say stuff I shouldn't say, but I was visiting with a colleague who had done work with a large fast casual chain. And we don't thrive in an environment, let me put it that way, of working with large corporate brands with a marketing department of 34 people, and we're the agency of record.
Right.
I personally like to know the actual owner of the business.
Yeah.
And because when I know the owner of the business, I'm able to truly understand not just what they want to do with marketing, but why they why do they start this? Why do they risk everything they risked for this? What is their passion? You've seen many business owners. Being a business owner yourself, you can understand this. The novelty of launching is a lot different than the reality of leading it 3 years after you launch it.
Yep.
And so I just feel like that what entrepreneurs need is they need a like brain with a different lens that can help them weigh and balances the choices they're making. And if we can help not only that on the strategy, but then what we found is that most entrepreneurs, is not that they don't have the idea, it's that they don't have the resources to execute it. So if we can come in and backfill and help execute it, then it's helping entrepreneurs.
Yes. And what I have found is that many owner operators and entrepreneurs really underestimate the degree to which they are different in the marketplace. And why do you think that is?
So I think is that they get caught up in running the business. They forget why they're different, or they forget about what was that spark that caused them to believe, oh my gosh, I can do something different. Now, you and I probably have a shared kind of disdain for commodities. I mean, like, who wants to be a commodity, right?
Right.
And I mean, commodities serve a purpose in the world, but that's not the sandbox I want to play in. And so I think what happens is that you have an idea. Oh, I've got a new idea, right? I want to do this, and the world needs it, or my town needs it, or this population needs it. But then all of a sudden you're into the obligation, sometimes the drudgery, the reality of doing it. And you get so caught in the mechanics, you forget your uniqueness. You forget that thing that you said that was going to be different. Or I think what happens is just because I have the idea and I can start a business, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm the best prophet for that
Right.
business, the best storyteller, the best missionary, whatever analogy you want to use. And so I've met a lot of great business owners that clearly had the vision of why they're different, but they just didn't necessarily possess the skill set, the finesse, or even the focus on making sure they're continuing to tell the story.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
It does. So what you're saying is that actually that point of differentiation is more, it stems from the founder's story, which often gets lost when they're scaling. Am I hearing that
Yes.
right?
Yes, I think so. I think it can get lost when they're scaling, or the other can occur, and you've seen this, I'm sure, is that the founder is still living in their story from 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And they haven't, I hate the word pivot, so we're not going to use that word. They haven't reimagined their brand evolution to where they are currently relevant in the terms of what the customer needs. And sometimes they feel like they have to give up their original vision to morph into the need, but really it should be a string of continuity that stays true to their story, even if it looks different than it did 30 years ago.
That's so, so interesting. And I have totally found that too. And a lot of the companies that I work with are internet companies, and they aren't that old. They haven't been around for that long. But because that world moves so fast that the things they used to do no longer work. And it was that long ago that it worked really well. And that ends up being a conversation around differentiation as well.
Oh yeah.
But today, so at the time we're recording, September 2020, it's the year of the pivot, and you hate the word pivot. I got to
I
go
do.
there. Why?
Yeah. Well, I'm probably going to mix some metaphors here, but to me, pivot is like a play, a part of a play. And it's like you pivot to be able to reposition. But it's not necessarily, you have to do it over and over and over again. And what I believe the brands that are going to more successfully navigate the next 6 months, as opposed to just trying to survive the last six, are the brands that have truly identified if they need to reimagine themselves. And what I
Hmm.
mean by reimagine is that they recognize that what they were to their customers 6 months ago, 9 months ago, is probably not going to be the same 9 months from now. And so instead of just trying to figure out how to protect cash flow or not have to lay off employees or like still pay the mortgage on the house, it is more about what do I need to be for the customers in the future that I'm not today. And
So good.
I don't think it's, Laura, I mean, the power of storytelling. I don't think it's necessarily changing their business model. Some
Right.
have to. I mean, we work with a client that they are in a category that's been disseminated and or decimated would be the word. And that decimation is a fact that they're a dry cleaner and no one is wearing business clothes.
Yes.
And so you could spend $100,000 on paid advertising for traditional dry cleaning, and it's not going to create any more dirty clothes than exist already.
Yes.
So they do have to, they can't just pivot. They just can't like figure out how to tolerate or endure the next 3 weeks. They're going to have to really reimagine, and they're doing
Oh,
that.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So the pivot thing is, I see more as a temporary, like part of the play action. And where I got to this was, running your business is not easy.
Yeah.
It's never easy. And, aside from marketing and branding, I finally realized about 8 years ago the magic of successfully running a business actually is cash flow. Uh,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, and I also learned that it doesn't really matter if you've got 1 million, 10 million, or 100 million. It's all about cash flow.
It
And
is.
so with that being said, is that um, I, by nature, play offense versus defense, and I believe in going after the next and recognizing the opportunity and being enthusiastic, but also optimistic and looking for the best. And if you don't like what you got, then you just kind of got to make your own better and that kind of thing. But the reality is we have all been thrown into this like defensive strategy of like, don't touch me, don't cough on me, don't kill me, all that kind of stuff. And man, there was more truth in all that than the scary. But anyway,
It's true.
worldly. Everybody is like in this defensive strategy on all things. And you know what? I have not found much joy in running a business from a defensive strategy. And so the team and I basically kind of had a family meeting, and we decided to remind ourselves about what it is we do for our brands, for our clients, and why we're doing it for ourselves, for our families, for our community. And that if because budgets were cut or things were changed, that not the same people needed us today that did 6 months ago, which we've been very blessed to only have like really one situation that had really changed significantly. That we just needed to let more people know what we're doing. And you know what? Without like running an ad campaign, but having honestly a mindset of intention, we've had we've had 5 new client prospects in the last 2 weeks.
That's so great.
Yeah. Very thankful, but I know you believe in mindset, and the power of that is that instead of trying to protect sales, I shifted my focus as a leader of being enthusiastically proud of what we can do and being open to opportunities. There might be more people that need what we do.
Yes. Yes. And it's really difficult because you do probably a lot of your clients are in the traditional space. They're in food, or they're in-person service. And that you're only probably able to react to the degree to which your clients are reacting at first. And then realizing that there is this opportunity to reimagine is such an amazing potential. I can speak from my own experience that my clients that have in a lot of ways reimagined, what they call it pivoting. Yeah. So I was so curious on your reaction to the word, but now that you're saying it, they really have reimagined themselves in new ways. Are doing phenomenally well. Is there any examples of reimagining that you think would be beneficial for the people who are listening to hear about?
Well, I'll use an example of if you think it's a pivot, you better make sure you bring your customers along. Mm-hmm. We serve clients throughout the country, and I was probably one of the more early people to go out and venture and travel. And I got to tell you, the more I've done it, the safer I've felt. But like I use Delta and United as 2 good examples. They each have used a little bit different approach. If you follow the airlines, Delta's committed to not filling up the center seat. United is committed to letting you know that the flight's going to be kind of full. If you want to take a different one, they'll easily accommodate you. Two similar solutions to the same root issue. Mm-hmm. But this is what I just hope every business operator has thought about as they have explained how safe their customers are in their environment. How does Delta stop defogging the plane in 6 months? How do they stop like thoroughly cleaning the plane on that quick transition, which the metric of airline profitability used to be how fast you could turn planes at the gate? Really, are customers going to accept Delta saying, you know what, the pandemic's over, we're not going to clean our planes as well as we did last year when we told you your safety was essential to us? Mm-hmm. And so, to me, if cleanliness of planes was a pivot, that means it was intended as like a bandaid, a fix. But I would say that with all the money that's been put on how we're keeping you safe, it was not a pivot. It actually was a new operating procedure, right? Is that tracking?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Because what is a Band-Aid for some companies of just keeping things moving, right, could eventually become standard. Now our standards are raised for something like what you're saying of cleanliness. What I have found is for some traditional businesses that have embraced online,
Yeah.
which is really my specialty, is the
Yeah,
online
exactly.
sales processes and online growth. Those companies now have two ways in which they can generate revenue if and when their customers are comfortable coming back to them in person.
Right.
And now, instead of it being a band-aid, it's a business strategy.
Heck yeah.
And that's really what I hope anybody who's listening begins to think about.
Well, as you know, we do a good bit in the restaurant, retail, consumer packaged goods area. And we have a client that on March, let's say March 16th, their customers had no idea. That was Tuesday, Monday. It was Tuesday the 17th. On Tuesday the 17th, their customers had no way of ordering online. And on Friday, the 20th of March, they did.
Yes.
And I got to tell you, shout out to Chow Now. Oh my gosh. They were an incredible partner with us and this client of taking this iconic, high volume, much beloved brand that was not only about the food, but the experience of coming to their place. And when your dining room shut down, how do you deliver the brand in a way that the consumers can, that you can do legally as well as safely?
Yes.
And it was all curbside and to go. And that was not a major part of their business. Now, when we talk about restaurant marketing, we use a very high class Harvard MBA term, which is basically butts and seats.
Yep.
And the reality is, if you don't have online sales, if people don't show up at your restaurant, you don't get the sale. It doesn't matter how much they love you. I could be craving that burger or that pizza, but if I don't show up, I can't buy. Well, if I don't show up or if I don't click on you, I don't buy. And so they have, we're optimists. I know surely our endurance over the last 5.5, 6 months is going to be rewarded with bluer skies in the future, hopefully sooner than later. But the reality is, it's like they built a whole nother restaurant, a brick and mortar, without building it with brick and mortar. And so it's really more about their capacity. Can they still make as many burgers perfectly for twice the volume as they did before? Because I believe their restaurant and patios are going to be overflowing as they have been for the last years and years and years. But now they have customers that say, I can actually buy more frequently because it doesn't have to be contingent upon me coming in.
Right.
And that's where this, all the big corporations use omni-channel, right?
Right.
And I'm like, whatever. But anyway.
By the way, the online gurus call it omnipresence because it's got a spiritual component when you're an internet marketer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like you're everywhere. But the reality
same thing. Yes. It's called stalking people on the internet. Yes.
That's right. Yeah. Which I appreciate, and it scares me sometimes. But,
and I like being stalked every now and then if it's the right thing. But yeah, we could keep going with this.
Oh yeah, but the deal is that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, to open another restaurant, you had to build another restaurant. And the reality is that through e-commerce, all these retailers hopefully have recognized that they can actually create another location. Like, for example, you know how multi-locations have the location page? Well, it's like you have this shopping center, and now you have online.
Right.
It truly could be your highest performing location you have.
Absolutely. I mean, I haven't even mentioned on this podcast about defensive business and having a baby during a pandemic.
Oh,
I should probably mention that at some point.
We didn't have a baby. Good for you.
Going to the hospital and giving birth in a pandemic. I mean, talk about defensive. Yeah. I had to have a COVID test 2 days before I was induced, and that was really fun. And then going to the hospital and having everybody be on such the defensive, which is totally understandable. But thankfully, with my test being negative, I was able, you saw what happens when people switch just psychologically from defensive, like, oh my gosh, I don't know if you're going to infect me, to, oh, you've been tested.
Right.
were totally relaxed now. I
Yeah.
actually think I had better care because they didn't have to be on the defensive.
Yeah. I
Which was
mean,
really interesting. But now my husband and I, because we have the baby at home and it is, still a time of quarantine, we will put the boys in front of the TV with some hot dogs. I mean, now the truth is all coming out. We will get takeout. We'll sit on the back, put the baby under the table and pretend we're at a restaurant.
yeah,
And it's like, it's really the only way to stay sane, quarantined with 3 little kids.
totally.
And we really haven't left the house since March, and it's September now.
Yeah.
And yeah, but many parents are probably doing that, right? They're realizing, oh, actually I could probably not get a sitter. I could probably get some takeout after the kids go to bed and actually have a really nice night together. So there's all of these probably little micro angles. There's these little subcategories of need that are coming up that I'm sure those companies don't even know about yet. And they'll find out as they end up serving customers and get to know them better, and behavior patterns start revealing themselves on social media or whatnot. I'm sure the opportunities are really in looking at where is that consistent behavior. Again, where are those patterns taking place that we could actually turn into programs like
That's
date
right.
night at home programs or something like that.
Well, and that's where, I do believe, sadly, that a lot of times some of our greatest learnings is through the pain we experience,
Yes.
and that it forces us to really kind of like, sounds all super cheesy, but dig deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's why I think, coming back to pivot versus reimagine is that let's say, this is a whole nother tangent, but you probably remember the Flintstones, and you remember that when Fred and Barney got off work and they pulled the thing and the whistle blew and they were able to go home.
Oh yeah.
I keep kind of imagining that is that going to happen one day with this whole pandemic crap? It's like, is somebody, whoever, gonna get on and go all clear? Unfortunately, I don't think so. And so I think it's going to be more. I don't think the rollout is going to be as implicit as the rollback was.
Yes.
And so I think it's going to be very difficult for us business owners to figure out what to keep, what to add, what was necessary out of necessity versus necessary out of a true brand deliverable.
Yeah.
It's just, it's super complicated right now. I mean, if you're running a business right now, you know what I mean? And you're talking to someone else who's running a business, then you know the secret handshake of what it's been like.
Yes, for sure. For sure. And so through all of it, I know you talked about going from defensive to offensive, but how else have you stayed joyful this year? What else has brought you joy?
Wow. So, I teach indoor cycling. I'm a spin instructor. That was not my business plan when I was 47. And, but through some interesting turn events, I ended up getting certified and have taught indoor cycling for about 6 years, taught this morning at 7 a.m. And honestly, getting back safely in a studio with bikes 6 feet apart, and it was 14 people versus 40 people, and super sanitation, that kind of stuff. That has been grabbing onto as much of my known routine as possible, and for me, exercise and sweat is a huge part of it. But also what's come through that process, and we've been doing it for 2.5 months, and I've only had one mini concerning scare. And so, and it wasn't even that concerning, but it was just, people panic. I say to say is that, we have to be defensive. In no way should we be reckless. Okay. Everyone has to be concerned about everyone. I hope, honestly, that we look back a year from now and learn that some of the things that we did were not necessary, but they were the right thing to do without information. All that being said is, while some people may freak to think of going in and doing a spin class with other people right now, it has been very liberating for me and for those who felt comfortable doing it. And part of it is that we've been conditioned the last 4 months to fear our breath, to fear,
Oh
to
my
fear our
gosh.
nose, and it's all about containment. And so I got to tell you, this morning, I showed up at the office team with a different energy that it was very hard to muster up during those 2 months of isolation where literally none of us are seeing each other and it's all remote. So, so that's one thing this helped is getting back in exercise. I think the other thing is um, employing deliberate grace. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I love to sweat, but I also love to eat. And when things got really stressful in end of March, April, May, I I'd have a little more of the donut or the carb or that kind of thing, knowing that I could do I know what it takes to get rid of it. But I was like, you know what? I can't be perfect at everything. And so I'm going to choose to focus my energy on areas that I can best enjoy. So like, um, especially entrepreneurs tend to want to be perfect at everything. And so I guess my deliberate grace would be there's some areas where I tolerated, I gave myself deliberate imperfections.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And just realized that I couldn't just nail everything like I usually try to do.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I'd say um, is being thankful in all things.
Yeah.
You know, you can't see it. And I don't want to tip the camera over, but on March 15th, I ranked all of our brands. Actually, March 14th, I think it was. No, March 15th, that's Sunday. I came in and ranked all our brands and tried to do a risk reward assessment for each of the brands and what a potential pandemic could do to them and how we might be able to serve them. And I just re-ranked them all yesterday as far as, okay, next 6 months, trying to anticipate their needs for us, quite frankly, that kind of thing. And having that side by side, I just took a moment and was very thankful for the trust our clients place in us, but also the fact that my team has navigated their own personal fatigue and their own personal
Mm-hmm.
fear and still committed to serving others. And we work with the brand Be Good to People. And it's this really cool black t-shirt, white letters. And I think that even in our fear and panic, that the more I've intentionally attempted to be good to those around me,
Yeah.
then it's helped mitigate the fear that steals the joy.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. So we're going to go into a couple quick questions before we wrap up. So what is your favorite book?
Wow. My favorite book would have to be Now Discover Your Strengths by Marcus Buckingham. I
Nice.
think I've given away 20 or 30 of those in my lifetime. And it was significantly one of the most powerful interventions in my life as far as clarity. Now, on a fun note, I like Stuart Woods, and it's like beach reading and Stone Barrington. I want to be him, but yeah, I'd say Now Discover Your Strengths.
Yeah, every entrepreneur needs some fiction because we are really bad. We rarely will give ourselves permission to read it, right?
Yeah,
And then
fiction or Netflix. I gotta tell you, Ozarks, which I heard they canceled. Oh my gosh, I think season 3 or whatever it was launched like the third weekend into the pandemic, fourth, whatever it was. I got home because I was the only one working in the office. Everyone else was remote, and I looked at Catherine and she said, "Yeah, no, I'll see you Sunday." And I just went back to study, and talking about binge is like total ability to ignore the reality. Yeah.
yes, yeah. I always, whenever I hear people say that, I just laugh. I'm like, oh my gosh, at some point, do you get to watch TV again? Like, does that happen? I guess there is that there is a time where it's something other than Nick Jr.
Well, as a 22-year-old with kids 22 and 25, I will tell you that yes, it is. Every stage is joyous. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But yeah, it's really nice to get through that phase too.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And then where can people find you, Ed, if they are interested in learning more about you or just want to connect with your brand, your brand new brand, which I love, called How We Build a Brand.
Yeah, How We Grow a Brand. How We
Yeah.
Grow a Brand.
How
Yep.
We Grow a Brand. Yes.
So we launched the YouTube podcast channel really, it's kind of funny, really without like a deliberate revenue strategy. I was I'm 53 years old, and it's like, it's really cool running a business, and it's really cool what I've got to done, but get to do and have been able to do. But I was like, really, what I want to really do, and I had some clarity over my personal mission, which was originally to share hope and joy with those that needed hope and joy. And it became a little more crystallized from the standpoint that I would love to get to the end of my life and realize that I've inspired a million joys. Okay.
So cool.
Yeah. And so one of the communities I love is entrepreneurs. And so we have created How We Grow a Brand with the vision that entrepreneurs are typically isolated, as you well know, and very much like this and your podcast serve others as well, is that just knowing that the things I'm facing today are similar to what other people are facing. I'm not alone, that kind of thing. So so we launched How We Grow a Brand. So you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have about 9 episodes published already. Great conversations. I hope, Laura, you'll join me on How to Grow a Brand sometime soon. So that's one way. And it all leads back to podcasts, YouTube, that all link. Our whole Insta social media network is How to Grow a Brand, LinkedIn, etc. Links back to 2 things. One is edhowie.com. And so I have had some people reach out to us personally as far as needing some direct help with their brand. But then my enterprise is just 17 years old, is BTYcreative. And the BTY stands for Be True You. And
love that.
Really from the kind of the crass belief that you can't lie your way to good marketing. And so the better an organization.
Not in 2020.
Not in 2020. Well, you can't do it in 1990 either, right?
If you were in 2019, your days are over.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. And so the notion of Be True You, and in our process that we believe that really tees up your fortitude of brand differentiation, is called the FBO process, first, best, and only. If you're not first, you better be best. And if you're not best, you better be only. And some of those powerful brands own all 3.
Yeah.
What would it take for you to own all 3? And so just like really, so there's multiple ways through the firm, directly at howie.com, social media, but then How We Grow a Brand.
Awesome. Thank you, Ed. It was so great with this chat. I know so many people get a lot out of it. There is nothing like 2 marketing geeks, geeking out over branding. So
well,
thank you.
I got to tell you, you shared the story at the beginning about, me being open to work with you. Well, it's kind of funny. It's like, I think about, why would I not? You know what I mean? To me, the model that I have employed is the best thing you can do for those you serve is to have really smart people working with really smart people. Yeah. And I'll tell you, you're a really smart person. But then I will tell you also the fact that what's not always the case is someone coming in would even want the incumbent, for lack of a better term, part of the table. And the fact that I think we attempted to serve our mutual client well by working together. I mean, there's probably like a life lesson.
It's probably like a what?
There's probably like a life lesson in that, right?
I think there is that's why I wanted to bring it up in the beginning. I think it is a life lesson. And I think that both of us have been around long enough to entrepreneurship to know that collaborations and relationships only create a positive outcome. Yeah. It's all upside when you can collaborate with really smart people, when you can work with somebody in your field. And there's also an abundance mindset that I think is really important there. And I know I believe that, and you do too. Whereas if both of us were at full capacity, we still wouldn't be able to help anywhere near as many people that need help with what we both know how to do. And I always believe that. I think, oh my gosh, there are so many companies that need direct response marketing help, like what I specialize
Right.
in, or need
Exactly.
branding help, like what you specialize in. And the amount of companies that need that kind of help just so significantly outnumber the amount of people who can deliver it well. And that is definitely part of my mindset too. And I love meeting other people like yourself and
Well,
connecting.
and that plays right into offense versus defense.
Yeah.
Do you try to defend your turf, or do you try to lead with your brain and
Right.
your service? I mean, really, right?
Right. Yes, absolutely. And so for anyone who's listening who is an expert, I think that is such a great life lesson in there. And I think there are so many people with incredible gifts and talents that will benefit again from this conversation, and really allow themselves to be in the company of other experts, because that's when you become better. So thank you again for
Thank you.
allowing yourself to be in my company
Yeah.
today. And we'll
Look
see you
forward
next
to
time.
you returning the favor soon.
Yes, we will. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll